Welcome back to another episode of Stacking Dennys. I'm Jordan McAbee of RotoBaller, my co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network, William Byron in Victory Lane, and yet again, all we're talking about is Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson get into it at the end of Darlington. Ross Chastain, Martin Truex Jr. kind of got into it during the race as well. But like I said, William Byron gets his third win of the season. Bubba Wallace gets another top 5. Harrison Burton gets a top 10. Justin Haley gets another top 10 at Darlington. And our boy Todd Gilliland comes away with an 11th place finish, if we want to talk about how wild this race was. But as usual, we're talking about Ross Chastain because he is the only person making waves in NASCAR right now. And once again, he's at the center of all the controversy this week. I think he's getting on more and more people's nerves. But before we get to that, I want to introduce a new segment quick on this show, and it's called How Many Races Has It Been Since Ross Chastain Won? And the answer is 39. Okay, welcome to Stacking Dennys. Nick, what did you think of Darlington, the race itself, not just the end?
Yeah, well, first of all, you were a little loud in my ears, and I was trying to figure out why while you were talking. I go down to my audio settings, and usually I have my volume at 30. I realized my volume's at 69, so that's why you're loud in my ears. So, but it was a nice number to be at least. But
Yeah.
that aside, no, Darlington was weird, man. Like that first part of the race was awful. Like legitimately a bad race to start with. Yeah, it was legitimately a bad race to start with. But I do think and I'm not talking about the crashing, I'm talking about the racing itself actually got better. We saw Ross Chastain make a pass for the lead on Truex, legitimately, like after a pit cycle, all that stuff. I think as the track rubbered in, as the day progressed and the track conditions changed a little bit, we saw certain drivers, the comers and goers, as we say, but we saw certain drivers improve, certain drivers get worse. And so it changed. So I thought the racing got better. And so in Jeff Gluck's poll, I did vote yes, only because I like racing, and I will tend to lean towards yes if I'm on the fence because I like racing, and I don't want to say every race is a bad race because I think most racing is good racing, and it got better. But that first, and I mean, if you follow me, you saw my tweets, it was dreadful. It was borderline unwatchable for the first stage and a half. It was really bad. So
and it made you question, whether the cars that were up front all day actually were that fast. Because, for example, Bubba Wallace, he had an issue on pit road. He was running top 5 all day. He gets back in the pack, and they're basically his team's just like, yeah, you can't pass. Like, good luck,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was tough to pass overall, and he never really came back. Truex kind of came back because he fell back a little bit after he had his issues and stuff, but we saw it was weird. Like the race winner, William Byron, ended up falling back a little bit, and he ended up winning because all the guys that were faster than him ended up wrecking. But I think he probably only had the 5th best car that race. I would certainly say Truex was better if you consider the whole race. Yeah. Obviously, Chastain and Larson were better. Kyle Busch, I think, was better. If not the end, I think he had a little contact with the wall, which hurt him at the end. But the bulk of the race, Kyle Busch was better. So I think there's 4 cars at least I could say that were better than William Byron over the bulk of the race. Christopher Bell, yeah, he was pretty close there. He was running top Toyota after Truex had his little issue with Ross Chastain to finish that stage out. So yeah, it was a really weird race. Obviously there was those incidents, and I know you'll have things to say about Ross Chastain. For me, Chastain, so obviously Larson got into Chastain on that one restart, forced Chastain into the wall. And I don't think Chastain did it as a retaliation to put Larson in the wall, but Chastain admitted it was his own fault, and he said he just got tight and he wrecked himself. If you're Chastain, you don't want to wreck yourself. You want to win the race, and you were right there with the opportunity to wreck the race. I don't think he meant to do it because I think he meant to crowd Larson for sure, because Larson crowded him on the previous restart. My issue with Ross is why? Why do you need to crowd him? Just try to get the win. Don't worry about crowding him. Just get the win. And you tried instead to crowd him, and then you got tight. And once you get tight and you're crowding him, you have no room left. So you did wreck yourself. So it's just just boneheadedness on Chastain's part. It's just straight up boneheadedness. I don't think it was malicious. I think it was aggressive. I think it was retaliatory in the sense that he was not giving him room. but it ended up backfiring because he got tight, and I think it was just dumb. Just race for the win. And we're starting to see it now. Trackhouse, Justin Marks said, okay, now we might actually have to rein in this aggression. So it's becoming an issue. The Truex incident, well, it wasn't Chastain's fault at all. That was just stage racing and Truex racing hard. I don't have any.
If anything, it was Chastain not wanting to lap Suarez. I do think that kind of came into play there. He sure. slowed up to not. But that's once again a dumb move. Why just lap him? He'll get the lap back on the caution.
Yeah, exactly. So either way, I think people will always want to blame Ross Chastain if he's involved in an incident. The Truex one, I don't think it was his fault, his deal, or anything like that. But even the Larson, the first Larson one wasn't his fault either. Nothing Ross could do there. It was the last one where he just went straight up boneheadedness. That was really dumb.
Here's a question for you, though, on the Truex thing. Obviously they're racing for the stage win. All of a sudden, Truex spins himself out. Ross is involved. I immediately tweeted. I was like, "Why are we racing this hard for a stage win? I get it's a playoff point, but Truex could have completely ruined his race there, and he kind of did. Mm-hmm. I mean, was that a product though of he knew who he was racing, so Truex immediately got more aggressive because it was Chastain? I don't know if that happens if it's not Chastain in that position. I don't know if that happens if that's Larson ahead of Truex right there. And I think that's the Chastain effect. 100%.
It is the Chastain effect, and I think that's an error on Truex's part because he let the Ross Chastain effect affect him. And that's part of the whole aura around Ross Chastain is he makes others do things they wouldn't normally do, which is part of the, and I know you hate this, it's part of the intimidator effect. I'm not saying in terms of wins. I'm just saying in terms of the way you interact with them on track. I'm not saying he's Dale Earnhardt by any means. I'm just saying the way you interact with him on track, he kind of intimidates you a little bit into doing these things you wouldn't normally do. Maybe even kind of like with Larson, right? Like he raced Chastain hard on that restart where Larson controlled things on the inside and got, he and Ross got in the wall on the outside. There's just these things where because Ross races you so hard, you feel like you have to race him so hard. And you're right. Why were they racing so hard? I guess to me it makes a lot more sense though that Truex was racing so hard because he has the win. So the playoff points matter much more than the stage points to him. He doesn't give a shit about stage points. He wants the playoff points. So actually I think it made a lot of sense for him to race hard. For Chastain, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to race super hard because barring ridiculous, basically new winners every race from here out, he's going to make the playoffs. So for him, the way to get a lot of playoff points would be to ensure he's doing well in the standings because that could get him 5 extra playoff points by leading the standings instead of 1 extra playoff point by winning the stage. So, and I don't think Ross did anything wrong there as far as the stage itself, but I think just I think it made a lot of sense for Truex to go for it in that situation because he has nothing to lose. All he can do is gain a playoff point.
Right. Going back, some other happenings in the race, and this is actually going to be my whine about it. I'm actually not going to whine about Ross Chastain. I know I kind of said that on Twitter, but I've said enough about Ross Chastain on Twitter. Do I think he's great for the sport? Yes. Do I like what he's doing and the buzz he's creating? Yes. Am I going to bitch about it? Yes. But here's the thing: can it be both great for the sport, but him also making very stupid decisions? And I think the fact that you had Rick Hendrick coming in and saying, you know what, enough's enough. This is one of, if not the most established person in this sport saying Ross Chastain needs to calm the fuck down. And I think that's a big reason why you said Marks came in and said, we need to get this under control. And I think he's right because right now it's an every week thing. It's different if it happens every month. This is every week and it's just becoming way too much. And, I can't believe Larson wasn't more, and it's not his demeanor to be kind of pissed off, but homeboy's gotten wrecked. Got wrecked at Dover, got wrecked for the win at Kansas, and then gets wrecked at Darlington. Kyle Larson could have 3 wins over the last 4 races, and he has nothing to show for it whatsoever. So that just has to be the most incredibly frustrating thing for that team and Hendrick Motorsports. I mean, obviously Hendrick still ended up in victory lane at Darlington, but Kyle Larson, man, he could be having almost a better year, as you talked about last week, almost a better year than his championship year, and he really has nothing to show for it. He has one win, Yep.
Yeah, that honestly though, that is kind of how his 2021 started. He still has more wins than he had at this point in that year, that 2021 year. We had 10 wins, but you're right. He could have
he has 2 wins.
Legitimately have 4 or 5. Wins. Yeah, he has 2 now, but he could legitimately have 4 or 5 at this point, or even 6 maybe. That's how good he's been this year. It just hasn't worked out. But we saw the same thing in 2021. Is a Larson breakout imminent? It feels like it. It feels like we're going to see 2 or 3 wins in a span of like 4 or 5 races at some point here. The issue is 2 years ago he was crushing those road courses, and it was him and Chase Elliott. Now they've got another contender in Tyler Reddick. It's going to be a lot harder for him to pull that off with Reddick being how he is at the road courses right now. So because we're about to hit street road course season here in the coming weeks and months. We're going to have Sonoma in a little while. Obviously, we have All-Star this weekend and then Coca-Cola 600. But after that, we're going to start getting into that summer territory where we have a bunch of road courses. And, obviously Reddick's going to factor in. Chase Elliott, if his leg is healed, is going to factor in. Although they've been struggling this year. The 9 car has struggled. They struggled again. Yeah, finished 3rd. But he absolutely struggled again at Darlington. So just one of those things where, you got to be consistent. But you mentioned consistency. You mentioned, I shouldn't say consistency in like finished, but consistency in terms of like a single race, just being consistent and not getting involved in things. Harrison Burton, Todd Gilliland, you mentioned him, Justin Haley. Those guys with all really good finishes. Shout outs to those people. I know Chase Holden of Garage Guys had Harrison Burton 12-1 for a top 10. Great job, great bet. I had Corey LaJoie 20-1 for a top 10, and that felt like a good bet to me. I think my process was absolutely right there. It just turns out LaJoie just didn't have speed, which sucks because he had practice speed. He has good track history here, and he just didn't have speed. And I felt like if he had Harrison Burton speed like he did in practice. He did. He legitimately had. He was faster than Todd Gilliland and Harrison Burton in practice in some of the metrics. Like, if he had just had that speed, I could have had a 20-1 top 10 potential. I'm not saying it would have hit, but Todd Gilliland didn't hit. But I definitely was eyeing Harrison Burton and Todd Gilliland top 10s as well. Didn't end up playing them. I ended up playing LaJoie. But shout outs to those that did. Darlington is chaos. 3 straight Darlington races in this next gen car have been chaos at the end, not necessarily at the beginning of the race, but middle end of the race. And that's something we need to keep in mind. So big shout outs to Chase Holden for that top 10 hit. I thought that was really good. Just really, really weird really weird race overall. But we kind of just have to come to expect that now from Darlington. Some weird races.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we have the All-Star race because the way these races have been ending lately, I can't put into words how frustrated I was at the end of this race this week. I thought it was an entertaining ending. I don't, like you said, like we've talked about many times on the show, I don't necessarily care that I have bad weeks. I know it's going to fluctuate and it'll end up good in the end. But I don't know. It frustrated me so much. I'm so glad that's All-Star weekend because I have no interest in watching any racing for a week. I need a break. And part of it's due to the schedule as well. I need an off week. I need more off weeks in NASCAR. Not to say I don't like the sport, but I just need an off week, especially so great timing for the All-Star race. And then, we got the Coca-Cola 600 after that, which one of those, again, I could see Kyle Larson just going out and absolutely dominating the shit out of that. But one guy we didn't talk about that had a really good race despite, I guess he did start 10th, but Brad Keselowski. Finished 4th, but he also had the 5th best driver, and he was fast all day. Never really had race-winning speed, but he was solid. Just solid. So, overall, I feel like, as much calamity happened, the guys that we said and thought and projected to do well were fast. And that's what truly matters in situations like this. Outside of Denny Hamlin, what the fuck was wrong with Denny Hamlin? He was legitimately running 20th all day. It's not like he was slow in practice. He was like that. They did something.
And here's the thing. So, obviously we're content creators. We bet our lines and all that stuff. And I'm not going to sit there and track in the action app. And I don't do this. I don't track bad lines in the action app. But William Hill hung a very bad line on Denny Hamlin after practice qualifying. They hung Denny Hamlin top 5, 15-1 for top 5, wow. Not for the win.
Oh wow,
which would have been good value for the win. They hung him top 5, 15-1. So I actually
just like
laid a large chunk of money on that. Yeah.
It's just like
exactly. At Darlington, DraftKings laid a 13-1 on Bell top 5.
At Darlington,
so I laid a good chunk of money on Denny Hamlin top 5, and he absolutely shit the bed. I didn't count that in like my tracking stuff, whatever, because the stuff I count in like my tracking is stuff I try to recommend to my viewers, my readers, followers, subscribers, whatever you want to call, people that listen to me and pay attention to my bets, because you can get that across multiple books or at least one book across many states. But William Hill is very specific, like William Hill, Nevada, had that fuck up. So, yeah, I was kind of bummed out. And so now Denny Hamlin is eliminated from his own bracket challenge by losing his matchup this week. So, they were out to lunch for the whole race. That was, especially given how good the rest of the Toyotas were. Bubba Wallace was good. Obviously, Martin Truex Jr. was great. Christopher Bell was very good. Tyler Reddick was good, but he always just kind of hung around the back half of the top 10 all day.
He had a Tyler Reddick race.
I was very confused because it's such a good track for him, but he's been kind of quiet. Like, he led a lot more laps last year overall at this point in the season than he's led this year. Road course notwithstanding, he just hasn't been what he was last year in that 8 car. And you have to think then, okay, Bubba's been probably, like, not in the point standings, but in terms of running up front, as good, if not better, than Tyler Reddick at running near the front. It's a very interesting situation, and I don't know if it's a 23-11 thing where they're not quite as good as Joe Gibbs in terms of like getting the equipment, the stuff. But I've always just assumed they're kind of just 1-6 car JGR team at this point, which has surprised me with how Reddick has been quietly in the back half of the top 10 instead of the front half of the top 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, sometimes we see that with drivers that switch teams. They take a little bit to get used to it. But definitely expect it. With if we didn't have the road courses this year, I'd say, with just what he's shown this year, right now, I don't see Reddick winning anywhere outside of road courses. Like, that's how just competitive or competitive isn't the right word, but lackluster that team's been. But yeah, Denny Hamlin, I mean, he was slower in green flag speed than Eric Almirola, to put it into perspective. He was bad. I mean, he was 17th. Todd Gilliland was 18th. Like,
great call, by the way, on your Eric Almirola pick in your DFS article. I don't even know what he finished, but he definitely had the speed to be a very nice tournament play, like you said.
Yeah, there was one point before the Ryan Newman caution that everything went to shit. I wrote up Truex, Larson, LaJoy, Almirola. Yeah. 5 of my guys that I wrote up were winning in the 100K lineup. Is what I'm getting at.
I had Priest written up, and he was in the top lineup for a lot of it as well. Priest had a really good day. Those Stewart-Haas cars had very little fall off, which was interesting. And we saw Kevin Harvick move up throughout the race, and just Kevin Harvick his way to another good finish. That's what he does.
Another second place finish, and he's third in points right now. Close to he's only 2 points behind Bell for being second. If that team can just find a little bit more speed.
He hasn't dominated a race. He has 0 races where he led the most laps, 1 stage win all year, but he's third in points. He's doing Kevin Harvick things, and the man's going to retire after this year, but he's still a top tier driver. Imagine if he was in Hendrick equipment or JGR equipment, what he'd be doing. Because we know Stewart-Haas just isn't quite on their level. They're a mid-upper tier team instead of an upper tier team.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about the standings. Let's move on to the standings quick before we do whine about it this week.
Yep.
So, like I said, Ross Chastain still the leader of the point standings right now, which I hear minimum probably 100 times a week because of all my shit talking about Ross Chastain, and then they say, well, he's the points leader. They don't give out championships for 13 races into the season. Like, I don't care who the points leader is right now. Nobody else should. Like, let's stop getting ahead of ourselves with Ross Chastain. But Ross Chastain's point leader, Christopher Bell, they had a like he was top Toyota before everything went to shit. Christopher Bell was having a great day there at Darlington. I think they didn't get a wheel on tight and they screwed it up. But Harvick, Hamlin, which by the way, Hamlin has finished on the lead lap of every single race this year, which is the most of anyone. Truex is next best with 12 out of 13. And then Byron sitting there 5th in points, also leading the playoff points with his 3rd win. I don't think enough people are talking about Byron already has 3 wins. And he could easily get to like it's just like Larson. Like, I feel like those two are almost interchangeable right now as far as how fast they are and how many races they could still win coming up, because Byron could easily win Coke 600 next week too, or 2 weeks from now. Truex, Blaney, Reddick, Keselowski, and then Larson rounding out the top 10 when it comes to the point standings. As far as the mid-tier to lower tier guys, Todd Gilliland is 22nd in points, 1 point behind his teammate Michael McDowell. Todd Gilliland has ran 2 races with Rick Ware Racing.
Yeah.
I cannot overstate how good of a season Todd Gilliland is having. He has a better average finish than Daniel Suarez. He has almost as good an average finish as Ty Gibbs. Todd Gilliland is killing it this year.
Absolutely.
It's, again, a 11th place finish. He has 2 finishes outside the top 25. No, 3. Yep. He finished 27th at Daytona. So,
yeah. Outside of that wear car, he's been absolutely killing it. If you remove that wear race, and then scale his average finish without that to the number of races he's run, he'd be, I think, ahead of Michael McDowell in points. Yeah, because he's only 1 point behind Michael McDowell. He'd probably be ahead of Austin Cindric as well. He definitely would be. And he'd be sitting in 20th in points right now if you could take his average finish and apply it to the wear race. So,
he does only have 1 start now with Rick Ware. I forgot Talladega. He was in a 3rd front row car.
Front row.
He wasn't in his 38. He was in that 36.
Here's a fun one. Before you get onto this, I've got a good one, and don't look. This is pure. You have to guess. Who has the longest top 15 streak right now in NASCAR?
Give me a hint.
He came back from major problems in this past race. Well, I shouldn't say major, but he came back from problems in the race. A wreck, a spin, whatever you want to call it. Ran inside the top 10 a lot of the race. Had a Dale Jarrett paint scheme. Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Really?
Yeah, he has 6 straight top 15 finishes. He finished 13th at Darlington, despite having that flat tire, which caused him to spin out and lose a lap. Finished 13th.
And the race that he didn't, or the last race that he didn't, was Richmond, when he had probably a top 5, top 10 car.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, same thing. He had something go down and hit the wall or some kind of problem. And the race before that, he finished 7th. So he legitimately could be on an 8-race top 15 streak had that not happened. But guess who has the second longest top 15 streak?
Justin Haley. I don't know.
No, but that's a good guess, but no. Christopher Buescher.
Really?
Has 5 races of top 15s in a row. Oh, no, I lied. He has 17th at Kansas. Never mind. I totally missed that 17th. So, yeah, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has a top 15 streak that's at least 1 race longer than everybody else, if not 2 races longer than everybody else. I thought Buescher, but then I overlooked that was a 7, not a 2 at Kansas. I thought it was 12th, not 17th, but it was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was 12th, right behind him in the standings. That I confused.
Yeah. Stenhouse actually over the last 6 races, he's the only one with 6 top 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. There's one more. Buescher, 17th.
Yeah, Buescher.
Yeah, it is Buescher.
Exactly.
but
and they're 13th and 14th in the standings.
You look at the last 6 races here. Average finish over the last 6 races. Byron, Elliott, 8.5, 8.6. Blaney, Hamlin, Stenhouse. Bubba Wallace, Chris Buescher, Truex, Keselowski, Reddick.
And that just goes to show you why average finish is not a good measure of future success.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because people use that in their analysis a lot, too much. And you need a much larger sample size. For me, I've found it's around 12 to 16 races where you can start to use it. And I'm not going to say use it, but like start to use it as a predictive metric. You typically, you need a larger sample size, even more than that. But then the problem is you get into car changes. So average finish just ends up not becoming a good metric to use predictively by and large. That's why we have things like flags or green flag speed if you don't have flags, or some kind of actual metric of like, this is a guy's true speed.
Right.
And so I thought that was interesting. I don't think anybody's sitting here thinking Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is the 5th or 6th best car in NASCAR. But the problem is people use finish a lot in their analysis over a 7, 8, 5 race sample, and that's just not what we want. We want to handicap speed. We don't want to handicap finish. We do want to handicap finish, but speed leads to finish more than finish leads to finish is what we're saying.
Yeah. Looking at shit. I'm pulling up ever since NASCAR media website changed and they redid it, it is the most god-awful website. I hate it so much. One, I used to be able to just search for a name and easily find a picture of somebody. Now that functionality doesn't work. And every time I try to open up a document, it gives me an error instead of pulling up the document. Like I got average running position for the year, but I'm trying to get green flag speed for the year. Byron number 1 I'm trying to see if there's anybody that sticks out as, like, I wanted to see where Stenhouse was in these. But Byron number 1 average running position. I'm just going to keep refreshing this green flag speed until it starts acting right.
You know what? We just, because we did the last 6 race sample size, we missed Chase Elliott. He has 6 straight top 15s, but his 6th was many races ago at Auto Club. But he's finished technically in his last 6, 2, 10, 12, 11, 7, and 3.
Okay, I got green flag.
I just had the last 6 specific races filtered, not each driver's last 6, but Chase Elliott does have 6 straight top 15s as well.
Okay. Kyle Larson's average green flag speed ranking this year is 3.875.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Which is
absolutely killing.
Insanely ridiculous. But
especially considering we've had 3 drafting races and a road course and a dirt race.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot more randomness to that.
That is absurd how fast that car is. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr., green flag speed, 11th best, 12.667 average rank, which, that's...
Yeah, that's very...
Is he the 11th? Yeah, that is... Is he the 11th best car? No. But that's definitely, like we said last week, JTG going down to 1 car has definitely helped Ricky
Give me
Stenhouse
Chase
Jr.
Briscoe. I want to know what that number is.
He's 21st, 15.7.
Which is very flattering because if we look at his intermediate package, I'm sure it's absolutely terrible.
Oh, my God.
What was he at Darlington? Because I actually don't have it pulled up. But he was terrible at Darlington, but he benefited from all the chaos. But he was running back there in the 28th, 31st position all day. I was monitoring that because... Go ahead.
Chase Briscoe was 30th in green flag speed at Darlington.
Yep. That's what I figured. And he finished 17th, but again, he benefited from all the chaos. Don't look at average finish. And this is a good track for him. Like, I shouldn't say a very good track for him. I did the analysis. It's like in a slightly above average track for him, but that's when I mean a good track. Like it's not a bad track for him. It's not even like an average track for him. It's a slightly above average track for him. And he was 30th in green flag speed. Him, with this package this year, has been a bottom 6 car every single race. Bottom 6 or 7 car every single race.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense how awful he is, because it's not just they're bad. Bad for them would be low 20s, mid 20s. He is barely outrunning the back markers. That's how bad that team is.
Yeah, exactly. It's really bad. I mean, there's days where Brennan Poole has outrun him or whoever, Todd Gillen, but Ty Dillon is what I meant to say. Like, there's days where that has happened, and that's just embarrassing. But it's only in the intermediate package. Obviously, at shorter tracks or at road courses or dirt or drafting tracks, it's a different story. But in the intermediate package, the 5 races we've had, he's been 30th or worse every single race in flags.
Yeah, and it's something to keep an eye on for head-to-head bets, because pretty much
I took Allmendinger over him head-to-head and lost. But to be fair,
I had Austin Dillon over him.
To be fair, Allmendinger was worse in flags and in green flag speed than Briscoe this week. So I made a bad bet. Straight up made a bad bet. Even though Allmendinger was leading him at the time that I had the 1, 2, 3, the top Toyota, the top 4, I was winning all my bets. And I was like, it's all going to go to hell. Allmendinger was leading Briscoe then too, but barely, because both of them were that shitty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had Austin Dillon over Briscoe. So when that wreck happened, I was like, this is just the start of the undoing today. But yeah, Briscoe makes no sense. Finished 5th at Bristol Dirt. Probably could have won Martinsville. I mean, finished 7th at Phoenix. Like, it's such a massive difference for this guy. Doesn't make sense to me. But definitely something, like, you just have to remember it. Like, because I don't see it changing very much. Outside of that, average green flag speed this year, I'm trying to find, another noteworthy little. Alex Bowman. He's still, we've kind of forgotten about him because of his injury. He hasn't raced the last couple of races, 2-3 races. I think he's slated to be back for the Coke 600.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I think so. Seems like
what's so funny?
I'm just smiling because I think it's a good bet he'll be back to the 600, but with it being 600 miles, I could see maybe a relief driver potentially. But you're mentioning him. He's 17th in the standings despite missing 3 races and a 60-point penalty. So he's essentially missed 4.5 races or something.
Yeah,
and is still 17th in the standings,
ahead of Daniel Suarez.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, he has as many lead lap finishes this year as Kyle Busch and Joey Logano, and more than Kyle Larson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's missed 4.5 races. Like if you let's say the 60-point penalty is just 1 race, right? Because that's like a race win and maxing out your stages. Let's say he's missed 4 races. He's still 17th in the standings, which is in the top half of the field. If you think of 36 full-time cars, 36 chartered cars, that's in the top half. That's insane for missing 4 races out of the 13 we've had this year. Almost a third of the races. He's in the top half of the field. Dude was having a year, certainly nowhere close to like 28th or 30th in the standings or anything like that. Dude was having a year.
And he still can't. I mean, with this format, he's going to get a waiver just like Chase Elliott did. But I don't want to say he has to win, but I'm much more confident Chase Elliott winning than I am Alex Bowman winning before the playoffs start.
I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. But, I mean, he's ahead of Daniel Suarez in the standings.
Just shows you how awful Daniel Suarez is.
Yeah, when his teammate's leading the standings, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's sitting there.
But what's weird is
and his teammate's leading the standings, and he's behind a guy who's missed 4 races essentially.
What's weird is Suarez is 10th in average green flag speed this year. Like, he's not slow.
No,
he just hasn't been finishing. Yeah,
he's had some bad luck. I will give him that. There have been races he's blown a tire, or this or that, or those happen. But also, he's made some mistakes. He has lost out on late race stuff, that kind of things, and those things all matter. But it's nothing new with Daniel Suarez. We see it every year. Last year, if he didn't have the Sonoma win, he wouldn't have made the playoffs.
That's true.
He's a very borderline playoff driver in equipment where his teammate constantly is in the top 2 or 3 in points. Last year, Ross Chastain was in the top 3 in points at this time of year too.
Yeah. Good old Daniel Suarez. But anyway, I don't really have anything else for standings update. Do you?
No, I mean, it comes back to, for me, okay, you always had these drivers you hate, right? Daniel Suarez is one of them. Austin Dillon's one of them. Well, look at Austin Dillon. He's 31st in the standings. Yes, he has a penalty. But even with that, he's only in the mid-20s, and his teammate is sitting there 11th. Then there's another one, Ty Dillon. He's 33rd in the standings, and his teammate is 25th. It's the same guys every year who are constantly behind their teammates, but yet they keep getting rides. Obviously, some of it's money or nepotism, sponsorship. All of that is part of it. But man, I would love to see in some of those rides just like better drivers.
Yeah,
just better drivers.
Yeah. Because it's the gap, and that just like there are people that think people out there that think that Daniel Suarez and Austin Dillon are legitimately good drivers, and continue to beat that drum that they are amazing drivers. No, they're not. They're not good. Like, what else do you need? One guy that I might be wrong on, and I'll admit this, I might be wrong. Jury's still out. Is Ty Gibbs. He's one of those that I do not like, but I don't know how good he's going to be.
Yeah.
That's probably the only one that I am probably going to be.
He's
wrong,
a tough one.
I've never said
that. Yeah. He's a tough one because he absolutely slayed his teammates in Xfinity, but how good were his teammates? That's the question, you know?
Yeah.
Another one, Austin Cindric, he's been garbage compared to his Penske teammates so far.
Which is bad because Penske
garbage.
hasn't been good like at all.
Yeah.
You know, Blaney's been decent. Logano has a win, but they're nowhere near where they should be when it comes to speed.
And I'm not talking just this year. Like Austin Cindric versus his teammates last year was bad. And I know we're not expecting rookies to be cream of the crop right away. I'm expecting more out of Austin Cindric than 2 finishes better than 19th through 13 races.
Mm-hmm. And there's
3 better than 19th, and only 2 top 10s for a Penske car. I mean, his teammates, Blaney has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 top 10s, and Joey Logano has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 top 10s. If I did the counting correctly there, and he has 2. Not good.
No. Logano's another one that doesn't quite make sense to me. Obviously, coming off the championship last year, he's having his worst season, average finish-wise. Obviously, average finish isn't super indicative.
Especially in the Gen 6 era. The next gen era.
But this is his worst average finish since 2012.
Yeah.
And you look at green flag speed, average green flag speed ranking this year, Bubba Wallace has a better average green flag speed ranking this year than Joey Logano does. Gibbs is right.
Penske's been down this year as a whole. I mean, remember, Ryan Blaney was contending for the points lead last year. He's 7th now. That's a massive step back for Penske as a whole organization. Monstrous step back. And Joey Logano was behind Blaney in points this time last year. So I don't think it's a surprise that he's behind Blaney in points. What I think the surprise is they're not contending for wins at all. The organization. And if somebody has been contending for wins this year, it has been Ryan Blaney. Now, I know Logano got the Atlanta win. That's a different... Not really counting those. I'm talking about like traditional ovals. Not just intermediate, but even the shorter tracks as well, where we're using the short track package, Phoenix, Richmond, Martinsville, etc. They haven't been contending. If anybody has been contending, it has been Ryan Blaney, right? Ryan Blaney has a second at Phoenix. But even then, like if we look at Penske, Ryan Blaney has no races where he's led the most laps aside from Talladega, which we're not really counting again. And he has no stage wins. Joey Logano, the only race he's led the most laps was Atlanta, and that was one of his 2 stage wins. The other stage win was at Kansas, where they got lucky on some strategy.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of a stage win. They didn't get lucky for the whole race, but in terms of a stage win, they got lucky on some strategy. So Penske's not there. Penske's not there as an elite organization right now. They're a step below elite. They're above Stewart-Haas, but they're a step below elite.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Who do you think is faster right now? Kevin Harvick or Joey Logano? Or Penske as a whole?
Yep. Kevin Harvick is Kevin Harvick. I don't think there's honestly, and this is weird to say with him being 47, but aside from Kyle Larson, there honestly may not be a more talented driver in the field right now in terms of what they can get from their equipment.
So here's some stats for you. Looking at average green flag speed ranking this year, there's one Ford in the top 11. It's Kevin Harvick, 4th. Average rank of 9th. Average running position this year, there's one Ford in the top 10. Kevin Harvick, 6th. Average running position of 12.1. I'm right there with you. Kevin Harvick, what he's doing with the cars that he has this year is the fact that he's actually could have a win by now is impressive and says enough, especially at his age. Kevin Harvick isn't young. Like, this is his last season.
Not young at all. I have an interesting one. If you give me a moment, so I have something called a driver quality metric, which rates a driver based off of how he compares to other drivers in the same equipment. Let me look and see what it rates our current field at. Because I have a feeling in terms of driver quality, and this isn't, so I have a few different quality metrics. And when I say quality, like Darlington quality, I'm talking how good is a driver at Darlington. I'm just talking overall driver quality. How good is someone? So give me just a second to pull that up. I haven't updated it post Darlington. But I can pull it up for the most recent race. All right, so there's the most recent race, and let me do driver quality. I think it's all the way here at the end. Overall, largest to smallest. Number 1, Kevin Harvick.
Wow.
Number 2 is Kyle Larson. But part of that is because, so it's doing team adjustments, but it also adjusts for after drivers have crossed teams. That way we get, it also adjusts teams relative to each other. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just a specific how'd you do versus your teammates. But that is a good chunk of it, and I think it influences the formula more than it probably should. But Harvick is crushing his teammates so bad that it makes him look even better than Kyle Larson. But Kyle Larson's number 2 in my driver quality metric. Number 1 in Kyle Larson. Yeah, Harvick's 1 and Larson's 2 in my driver quality metric. And I think, obviously, there's going to be some tweaks to that. Ideally, it's trying to equipment neutralize every driver in the field and say who's the best driver. Kind of like people who subscribe to David Smith over the many years, Motorsports Analytics. He had that PEER number, PEER, performance in equal equipment ranking or whatever. Mine's trying to do the same thing, except different. It's trying to rate a driver quality, but with a different method, a different formula, etc. And it has Harvick and Larson 1, 2, but pretty neck and neck, and by good distance over third place. So just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
My model loves Kevin Harvick, generally speaking.
But yeah, anything else before we get to whine about it?
Let's whine about it.
Hell yeah. I said on Twitter that I was going to whine about Ross Chastain, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to this week. Whine About It, presented by Luvabella Winery. As always, check them out. I'll drop the link where you can order it if you can't find it in stores around you. But my whine about it is going to be about NASCAR in general and the officiating. They had a bad race at Darlington. They had a bad race.
Take my whine about it.
Oh, did I?
That was real bad. It was real bad, yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be a dual whine about it. So, obviously the big one is Chastain. By anybody with eyes, Ray Charles could see that he jumped that restart, the second to last restart. Fox in the booth said that there. So here's the thing: NASCAR comes out today and says they checked the data, and Larson went before Ross, and that it was a clean restart. Here's the thing: Fox said that their data said that Chastain jumped it. They said that during the race broadcast. NASCAR, release the data. Release the fucking data, because now all of a sudden you have a bunch of fans and a bunch of people watching the sport once again questioning the integrity of this sport. Release the fucking data and show that Ross Chastain, that you made the correct call and that Ross Chastain did not jump the restart. Because like I said, I would have bet any money on it looking at every replay that he did. Not to mention that, I don't understand the rules when it comes to where you put cars that are involved in wrecks, because I immediately tweeted out when Truex was given the 1 stage point for the first stage. Every other race, if a race ends with a wreck, any race at Talladega ends with a wreck, anybody in that wreck is moved to the back of the field. Why isn't that done during Truex was the cause of that caution. He was the wreck. He shouldn't have gotten that 10th place. I don't care if they crossed the finish line. The caution came out. That's when it was frozen, but he should have been moved back. Not to mention, guys like Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott that were involved in that pileup definitely should have been moved behind the guys that missed the wreck. But I don't understand where they aren't moving these guys to the rear of the field. What is going on? Am I going crazy? Am I forgetting that these rules exist? Or is this just a fucking shit show by NASCAR and officiating? And don't even get me started on the fucking caution lights not working and them wasting a ton of laps.
Here's the number one thing about all of this, as far as the restarting with the correct order. NASCAR says you can't be involved in the wreck and you have to maintain minimum speed, and that's how you get your position. So if you're involved in the wreck and or you don't maintain minimum speed, you don't get your position. So for me, based off that, how can a car both be on the damaged vehicle policy and not be in the wreck? How?
Make it make sense, because you can't.
There is no world which a car should both be on the damaged vehicle policy and not be involved in the wreck. Unless they were from some previous wreck, of course, which is very different. That's not what we're talking about. There is no world in which that should be the case. Either they're on the damaged vehicle policy because they were in the wreck, or they weren't in the wreck and they're not on the damaged vehicle policy. That is the only solution here. And then I understand what NASCAR is trying to do with going back to the previous scoring loop, because they think some drivers will speed up and try to cut it and blah, blah. We have the technology, just video freeze it when the caution comes. When you hit the button or whatever it is, all that is synced up. And I understand the caution light's not working. That's not what NASCAR goes by as far as like the official. But the lights should still work. But we have the technology to say the field is frozen here when the caution came. Anybody else, even after the caution, anybody else involved with the wreck, we can still determine that by video. Everybody else, the field's frozen there. We have that technology. So whether a guy's speeding through or going below minimum speed, it doesn't matter at that point if you just freeze it there the moment the caution comes out. And then I understand, like, in terms of the running order, but But then just say, okay, that's frozen minus the cars that were involved in the wreck. And you can determine that by saying this guy's on the damaged vehicle policy or not. And that's it. It's a very simple solution. It is legitimately a very simple solution. You literally use the same technology to determine the finishing order of the race. But for some reason, we can't do it on lap 28 or lap 57? Lap 157? It makes no sense. We literally can sit there and say, caution's out. NASCAR has the electronic technology and the transponders and everything. So just say that's where the field is frozen. Going beyond that, I understand they could keep wrecking beyond the caution. Anybody involved in the wreck who is on the damaged vehicle policy gets removed from that starting order, moved to the tail end, and that's the order. It's not hard. It's a simple solution. But we don't do that. Instead, we want to throw this ridiculous, weird back to the previous scoring loop, and then this, and then these guys get moved back because they're in the crash, but this guy wasn't in the crash, even though he smashed the dude in front of him and is on the damaged vehicle policy, but somehow he wasn't in the crash. Makes no sense. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, it is enraging. It is enraging. Like, I'm enraged that a car could be damaged from a crash, but not be involved in the crash.
And NASCAR's almost lucky that this Chastain shit happened, because now they don't have the heat of people saying, what the fuck is up with this? Because it makes no sense. Just like, so that final restart, before that final restart, the caution that came out that caused the final restart, Larson was ahead of Chastain when the caution came out. But NASCAR reverted back to the last scoring loop, and that's why they put Chastain as the leader on that final restart, or the second to last restart. If that was for the race win, it would have had a different outcome. They would have made Larson the winner. Like, this does not make any sense at all.
It's so bad.
And I retweeted this during the race, some stuff that Bubba Wallace was saying. It's just a dog and fucking pony show. They'll just put the favorites back up front. He said they should just give them, he asked who wrecked. They said the leaders. He said they should just give them their backup cars and go back up for the lead. And then said, I'm probably going to get fucking fined after this. Like, he's speaking the truth, though. It's embarrassing how bad the officiating was and has been this year. I mean, you go back to the Martinsville race, there was a freaking tire sitting on the track for 2 laps before they threw a caution. Like, what is going on? This reminds me, like, this isn't I feel like heads need to roll. I feel like people need to get fired and replaced, because even going back to Richmond, that race where, was it Kyle Busch and Truex? They started the race when it was raining, and then they wrecked. The two fast cars wrecked immediately because they decided to start the race because, I don't know, whoever's trying to figure out if it's raining or not was not paying attention or something. Like, I get it if you like organizations like NASCAR are going to make mistakes from here and there. Thing is, with NASCAR, it's almost like Ross Chastain, where it's like on a weekly basis that they are making these mistakes, and it's screwing everything up.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's bad, and I mean, like, I have no problem going to bat for NASCAR when things are right, because people love to complain about NASCAR regardless, even when they shouldn't be. But the officiating in this race was bad, and it's inconsistent, and half the time it doesn't make sense. And you mentioned the Martinsville tire thing. It brought me to my backup line about it, which was Eric Jones wrecked in front of half the field because he lost a wheel. And I know you, among others, and this is probably where we'll disagree a little bit, we're an advocate of the shorter suspensions for crew chiefs and whoever, down to 2 races from 4 races. I want that 4 races back, man. Like, you cannot wreck in front of the whole field from a loose wheel, because time and time again, we've seen this. We saw it at Phoenix last year, the first Phoenix race, not the championship race. I think it was either Corey LaJoie or a Wick Rare car, I forget what it was, ingested a loose wheel. But that could have easily been punted into the stands. We could have easily seen Eric Jones wrecking in front of the whole field on a restart, and a tire gets punted into the stands. And I know the probability of it is low. I get it. But we've seen it happen in IndyCar or in Champ Car, kart back then. We've seen fans die from it. 6 fans have died from 2 incidents, 3 in each. We cannot have wheels getting punted into the stands at 100 whatever miles an hour. That is going to kill people. So having a loose wheel come off on a restart in front of 15 cars is not acceptable. And the issue I have with cutting that penalty from 4 to 2 races, it's already not a penalty because we already know the crew chiefs at home are still in charge and setting everything. Like, there needs to be a bigger punishment for a loose wheel on track. I understand the pit road deal if it comes off on pit road and it stays on pit road. If it's under caution, you tail end. If it's under green flag, drive through penalty. But on track under green needs to be something, for me, bigger. I will always be an advocate of fan safety, even before driver safety. Fans should not go to the race and be endangered. And I don't necessarily think they're endangered all the time, every time. But like, if a wheel comes off and a car hits it, there is a potential for a fan to be endangered. That's just the way it is, and I don't
not only just fans, but I mean, not only just fans, but even pit crew. Yeah, like
there's people, or track officials.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know what I don't understand, and this is where I think I can be with you on a longer or a more severe punishment. How do some teams, like Christopher Bell, they knew that they didn't get that tire tight? Mm-hmm. Do we think that Eric Jones's team didn't know that they got that tire tight? They didn't question it? Or what's the process here? They didn't want to lose track position, and that's where I'm going to have a problem with it. If they kept him on the track because they didn't want to lose track position because maybe we got it tight, but probably not, that's a bigger issue. Because
I agree. 100% agree.
These tire changers have to know whether they got that tire on there or not. And that's where you need to deal with the tire changer, which is part of the penalty is they suspend the crew members and the crew chief. But you can't be sending them back. I'm not quite sure, but you're right. Like Christopher Bell's crew knew, and they brought him back in, and that cost him a good finish, but it also prevented them from getting a suspension. I think there needs to be more severe penalties, like points, because you already get a points penalty essentially from Eric Jones spinning out and getting punished 2 laps. That's already a points penalty in itself, but there needs to be more than that. Because right now, obviously the penalty is not a deterrent. It's just not. We see it happen. We've already seen it happen 2 or 3 times this year. It's not a deterrent. Yes, mistakes are made, but there needs to be a point where mistakes of those kind get punished so severely that there's beyond extra caution. With like the Christopher Bell situation, they somehow knew it didn't get tight, so brought him back in and tightened it up before it went green. And the same thing could have happened to Eric Jones, where they could have brought him in. It hadn't gone green yet. They could have brought him back in. Eric Jones maybe feels a vibration. That's also partly on the driver. Like, do you suspend the driver at that point? What do you do? Something needs to be done because there will be. It doesn't matter if it's a 1 in a million chance. If you give it a million chances, it's a coin flip to happen at that point, right? Like, we don't want the 1 in a million chance of a wheel getting punted into the stands, into an official, into a crew member to happen. We just don't want that. It's not acceptable. It's not okay. And just the other point of that, it just took out like 8 good cars. Right, yeah.
I mean, good in terms of like healthy cars, not necessarily the best cars in the field because it was mid-pack and back, but like all of a sudden he cost 8 other cars their race. Yeah, that cost a bunch of money, cost a bunch of other cars their race. We don't want that either. It's infuriating. It's just
there has to be a way for NASCAR to put sensors on those. And
I agree with you.
There has to be some sort of technology that they can be like, hey, your tire's not tight, get in. But then you could run into the issue of it is tight and the sensor's wrong, and that all.
That becomes hard. It's not the easiest solution in the world. I'll give you that. And we do want teams to go fast. We want to see blazing fast pit stops. But there does need to be, in my opinion, a harsher penalty for loose wheels because we do not NASCAR does not need the PR of a tire getting punted and killing people.
Yeah. You mentioned, did Eric Jones feel it? I feel like I read somewhere or heard somewhere that with these one lug nuts, they don't feel that tire is loose until it comes off. So that I don't remember where I heard that, but I do remember hearing that somewhere.
That's good.
But yeah, a couple more things to talk about, but that's going to wrap up Wine About It here quick. Like I said, presented by Louisville Winery. Check them out. You know the spiel by now. Find them. North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia. I'll drop the link where you can buy them in online, get them shipped to you. I actually just found out the grocery store down the street from my house is getting a stock of Louisville wines in, so that's awesome. I've been pimping those around town to all my friends, so exciting. But before we wrap up this show, we're not going to talk about the All-Star race really because, one, I don't care about the All-Star race. Two, we haven't raced at this track since 1996. We have nothing to go off of. But I ran a poll. I want to talk about stupid people. I ran a poll earlier this week just because I was curious. And I said, did Jimmy Johnson was the last person to be named to the NASCAR 75 greatest drivers list? To the surprise of no one. I mean, 7-time champion, one of the winningest drivers in NASCAR history. And I simply asked a yes or no question. I said, did Jimmy Johnson deserve to be on this list, the 75 greatest drivers of all time in NASCAR? I didn't ask if he should have been number 1. I didn't ask if he should have been top 5. I didn't ask if he was the GOAT. I said, is he a top 75 driver ever in NASCAR? 14.3% of people said no. Out of 482 votes, 67 out of 482 people said no. What is going on? What alternate universe are you people living in? I understand there's going to be people that try to skew polls. I understand there's going to be people that do not recognize or do not understand the question entirely, as simple as it is explained. 67 out of 482 is a significantly high number for people to be voting no on this. What is going on? Is it because it was a full moon? What is going on? I don't understand.
I can answer the question. It's because we all know he should be. So there are people with troll votes. And I was one of those. I voted no because it was funny. I voted no. Why the hell not? Really, do we think Jimmy Johnson shouldn't be in the top 75 NASCAR drivers of all time? Come on. I mean, that's a 100% lock. If there was ever a lock in the history of locks. But that goes to show, the Good Race poll for Jeff Gluck, that these ballots get stuffed in one way or the other with troll votes, with whatever. But if you did this with every single driver, you might start to see at least, then people would take the poll seriously. I'm not saying, most people didn't take your poll seriously, but there's obviously a bunch of people like me who didn't because we all know Jimmy Johnson's a lock, a mortal lock. But if you did it on every driver and made it this is a serious thing, should this driver be in the top? If you did Ryan Newman, Casey Kane, should they be in? Anybody else? You would then if people realize you're it is a serious poll, like Jeff Gluck's Good Race poll is, you'd get actually much more representative results. But I voted no because it was fucking funny to vote no because why for me, and I'm not even criticizing you, it's more just why are you doing that poll? We all know Jimmy Johnson's a yes. There isn't a person in this world that would say he's not among the 75 best drivers of all time. So for me, it was funny. I absolutely threw in a no troll vote.
I did the poll because I wanted to know how many people were going to vote no. That's one reply I got to it. Why is this even a question? It's not, but
exactly
clearly it should be.
Well, that's the whole point. Why is it even a question? Why are you even doing a poll on it? It was it was almost so absurd in a why is this a question way that it invited the silly votes.
Yeah. So
it's not like we're choosing a presidential candidate or something and we're giving our serious vote. Some people are just memeing on the internet, and I definitely memed on the internet.
Man,
so
I also ran
my fault.
My poll from May 10th, which would have been last Wednesday. Which happens first, Ross Chastain wins a race or Ross Chastain wrecks somebody. Got 77%, and that happened on Sunday.
I took that one seriously. That was a wreck somebody. Easy.
More to that point, though. I've had people, and you replied to one of them. Like, a lot of people are bitching because I'm talking about Ross Chastain so much. What do you want? What do you want? Like, you sit here and say he's great for the sport. He's the next Dale Earnhardt. He's Dale Earnhardt reinvented. Blah 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 blah. But then you tell me to not talk about him. What do you want? If you want him to be good for the sport, then you need to talk about him. And exactly. You know what? People are gonna not like him. Like, that's the definition of a villain. Which, by the way, just to further get on this, NASCAR shit the bed, just like Denny Hamlin did at Darlington.
About missing out on the Gregson Chastain hype.
They didn't do a damn thing about it. I know people thought that TikTok took that video down, and that could be right. But the fact of the matter is the punching video on TikTok was removed from NASCAR's page. It wasn't. It's still out there for plenty of other people to see. It was removed from the page, and they obviously did not do a damn thing to capitalize on it. Just like I don't think they'll capitalize on this. Like, you need to build this up. Like, if you want to actually gain people into the sport, you need to build this up. And they're once again not doing anything. And that's probably even more frustrating than Chastain's actions and the shit that he's actually doing is the fact that nobody at NASCAR can get their head out of their ass to be like, we need to make him, like Kyle Larson said, Chastain can be a bigger star than Chase Elliott.
He should,
but he's not gonna do it by himself. He's not gonna do it just by his on-track actions. NASCAR needs to make it happen.
I agree. Chase Elliott's only a star. Chase Elliott's only a star because of his dad.
Mm-hmm. They're scared. NASCAR is scared to have an actual villain. They are scared to have a young Kyle Busch. They're scared to have a young Kurt Busch. They are so stick straight, cardboard cutout bullshit that, one, these drivers I think are scared to have a personality outside of maybe Chastain. But two, NASCAR scared just to have any negative perceptions of any driver when you need it. You need the booze. You need the crowd to be pissed at somebody.
Here's the thing. Remember we were told Joe Gibbs Racing couldn't get sponsorship for Kyle Busch? He's had 6 different sponsors this year as his main sponsor. So that's horseshit. The whole, we need to be cardboard cutout to get maybe to attract the one sponsor who will do 24 of the 36 races, maybe, I don't know. But don't tell me these guys aren't marketable. Don't tell me Kyle Busch is not marketable. That's bullshit.
You can't tell me that. You can't tell me that with all of this shit that Chastain's doing and all of the attention that he's getting during broadcast, that there aren't potential sponsors that have been phoning Trackhouse for the last month saying we want on that car. You can't tell me that. There's no way, because nobody with a marketing brain would say, I don't want to be on that car. No, everybody wants to be on that car because he's good. He's probably going to be doing stupid shit, but you know what? He's getting you
eyeballs.
Time. Exactly.
That is massive. I honestly don't even remember the last time we didn't talk about Ross Chastain after a race. I legitimately don't even remember. And that's the whole point. The dude is always a topic of NASCAR. He's a topic on Denny Hamlin's podcast weekly. And it's amazing. It doesn't make sense why you have to be vanilla Chase Elliott to get a sponsor. It doesn't make sense. There's no reason.
Imagine how much more we would be talking about Chastain if he was actually winning races too.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Like the potential is there. The potential is there. I say he hasn't won a race in so long as a hater. I want him to win a race.
Yes. Yeah. I think he will start winning more races. I think you said this last week. Like, he will win more races. And he's still adapting. He knows he has this aggressive persona. He knows this, that, and the other. He wants to win races. He still hasn't figured out, and he will. It comes with experience. It's happened with, like, Larson in a very different way. Larson just overdrove his car a lot, or overdrove his equipment a lot. he will figure out how to win races by not doing the things he's done late in races. But those mistakes need to happen for him to start winning more races. It's very rare that a driver comes in raw first, second real full-time year. I'm not talking his shitbox years. And just wins 8 races because they have it all figured out.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing with Chastain. And another part of why NASCAR needs to market him. Look at that story. Like, obviously we have the watermelon farmer shit, but look at his journey through NASCAR. Mm-hmm. He grinded it out in shit equipment, got in decent equipment in Xfinity, and now all of a sudden there's this brand new team that comes out and they make a splash immediately that we have not seen in, I can't remember the last time that a new organization came in and challenged for wins immediately.
Honestly,
that's what Trackhouse did.
Honestly, though, Trackhouse and 2311 have both done that. They both won in their second year.
That's true. 2311, yeah.
Yeah. See, it's kind of the new model with the next gen car, but they both had a year. Like Daniel Suarez shit the bed for Trackhouse that last year of the Gen 6 car. Bubba Wallace, I wouldn't say he shit the bed, but like he wasn't very good either in terms of like that whole team. But then as soon as the next gen car happened, leveled the playing field. Trackhouse and 2311 both had multiple wins last year. 2311 had 2, Trackhouse had 3 between their 2 drivers.
Yeah. See, 2311, I'm with you. Like, my brain just automatically puts him under Joe Gibbs. To me, it's
exactly.
Gibbs, exactly. GTR, 6-car stable. Exactly. Yeah. But, no.
It's curious what we'll do next year with Legacy. Like, are they just a 8-car stable now? And they said no. Legacy said no, but, like, is our brains going to eventually do that?
All right. Well,
it'll be interesting to see.
Or it can go the opposite way because there's going to be so many Toyotas now. You know, we go
then
from...
do we actually mentally separate 2311? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. But you got anything else to talk about this week? Because I'm ready. Like I said, I'm ready for a break.
Here's the one thing I will say about the All-Star race. People say we can't handicap it, but we can. It's a short, flat track with high tire wear. It's not like
I have a feeling it's going to have an insane tire wear. Yeah. It's just a new track.
So does Richmond, and it's in the same area of the country, not too far apart in terms of time of year. People say we can't handicap it. I think we can. I don't think it's going to be the easiest race to handicap, but you can't tell me Kevin Harvick's not going to be competitive. You can't tell me whoever this, that, the other. The only thing we can't handicap, A, the format, B, how serious our team's taking it. Are they trying shit out? Those are the only things we can't handicap. But aside from those, let's say every team was taking it seriously on some normal format, we could handicap that. We did the same thing last year with Gateway. We handicapped that race. Mm-hmm. It was the first time we'd run there. Don't tell me we can't handicap this race. We can. Does it mean we're going to have the most accurate projections? I'm not even doing projections for the race simply because, like you said, we need weeks off. It's not going to be the most accurate. I don't know how ownership is going to factor in a DFS slate of 21 plus 4 cars. You know, we don't even know who the other 4 cars are, and then there's no time to add in the 4 cars in terms of ownership anyway, or the projections and how that affects everything. I'm not doing that. But we can still handicap the 21 cars that are in plus field for the main event, and we can still handicap the open. Those are handicappable events in terms of betting. DFS is a lot harder because of the time crunch we have between the open and the main. We don't know which cars are going to transfer into the main, which 4 cars, because that will affect ownership percentages. That will affect the final results. And yes, theoretically, we could have a range of outcomes based off the probability of each driver getting into there, but that becomes a whole lot more complicated than just field, no field for an outright bet. So that's why I'm not doing DFS projections. Don't tell me we can't handicap this race for betting. Am I going to bet a lot on this race? No. Am I going to bet any on this race? Possibly not. But Westgate opened with pretty good odds, honestly, for a 21 car plus field. We're talking like last week, Larson closed at what, plus 450 at a lot of books? Mm-hmm. The shortest driver at Westgate right now is 8-1. And that's Larson. That's really good because we've cut off. I mean, we've cut off, if you want to say 25 cars, we've cut off 11 from most races. If you want to say 21 cars, we've cut off 15 from most races. That's really good. Like, these are pretty generous odds. And I may take a stab or two. They won't, probably my unit will be a half unit or whatever. Don't get me started on units because we've been through that last year with units and dollar amounts and what's your dollar amount for unit. At this point, we should go by ROI, right? Like, if I made my unit $1, I'd be up 100,000 units this year or something. Not exactly, but you know what I mean. I'd be up 5,000 units or 7,000 units or whatever. I don't know what the exact number is, but if I made my unit $1, I'd be up a gazillion units. Is the point? So let's not talk units. Let's just start talking ROI. I understand when you're trying to explain something to a bettor, bet one unit, whatever your normal standard size is, bet that. But don't tout your unit size. If you're betting 5 units when other people are betting 1 unit and saying your 5 units is like your peak, because for most people 1 unit is their peak and they'll rarely go above 1. And that's where units can get complicated. Like, and there's just a whole lot to units. You can artificially inflate units, but what you can't inflate is your ROI. But that aside, All-Star race, you can definitely handicap this race. I don't have a problem with betting it, wanting to bet it. It's certainly possible to bet it. Am I going to bet a lot? Probably not. Mainly because I kind of just want a week off, like you said. Honestly, I may not even watch the All-Star race. Vegas is going to be playing on Sunday in hockey, so I'll probably end up watching that. I don't know. I haven't looked at the times of anything. I don't know what time the All-Star race is. Maybe they don't conflict. But right now, the All-Star race is the lowest thing on my radar for this weekend.
Yeah. Just for shits and giggles, though, we're going to do picks to win. Who you got?
Did you pick Byron last week?
No, I thought I did. I picked
Larson.
Larson.
I saw you tweet about it. I was like, I thought you picked Larson.
I know. I tweeted, then I went and looked, and I'm like, God, I didn't. I went Larson.
Because I gave you Larson. Like, I picked first, and I picked Kyle Busch, and then you picked Larson.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Christopher Bell.
I like that. I'm going to go Kevin Harvick.
Yeah, I like that too. But, I mean, are we sitting here really being like we can't handicap this race and it's just short, flat, high wear track and we think Harvick, Bell, Hamlin, Truex, Larson, Byron aren't going to be good? Like, come on, what are we doing? We know those guys are going to be one or two or three of those guys will probably be the fastest cars.
I think for me, when it comes to not wanting or not trying to handicap this, I just don't care. Like, I'm so
right. Yeah.
I need a break. I don't care about the All-Star race. I've never cared about the All-Star race. And yeah, I think that's where I'm at when it comes to this weekend.
Totally agree with you. I think we all know who the best cars will be. I think a lot of us just need a break.
Mm-hmm.
Which says a lot about the schedule. It says a lot about the schedule. We all need a break.
Yeah, we will have a break coming up for Father's Day in mid-June. But that's the only off week. So, yeah, that's going to wrap up this episode. If you bet on the All-Star race, good luck with that. Coke 600 coming up after that.
You random fantasied, by the way. You random fantasied before I did this week.
I'm to the point where if I see that people are making picks, I just click it because, like, we all know it's going to shut down here soon. Or that's the
but I need my influencer point. By the way, the driver that's dock blocked this week is nobody because I have the number 4 car, but Kevin Harvick is racing the number 29.
Nice.
Oh, Random Fantasy changed it. They've updated it to the number 29 car. So Kevin Harvick's dock blocked.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. I think
so
I got
your pick.
I think
Your pick to win is Doc blocked.
Yeah, I got Ty Gibbs. I don't think the All-Star race doesn't count as in the standings, does it?
No, it doesn't count in the official standings. But the influencer, you still get influencer points for people picking your All-Star pick. Tailing your link or whatever. But anyway, that's all I got.
Yeah. It's going to wrap it up. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week when we go to Charlotte. Yeah. See you guys.